Give you some supporting documentation. On Tuesday, the tech billionaire Elon Musk said he wants someone fairly normal for president as the 2024 election draws closer. However, he didn't explicitly make an endorsement. Now, this comes just one day after it was revealed that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would be launching his presidential campaign in a live and unscripted interview on Twitter with Musk. It will happen later today. Although the Twitter CEO has previously said he would vote for DeSantis should he run, he has recently been hedging his bets, showing support for Republican South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, who announced his campaign for the presidency just earlier this week. You had to see that one live, by the way, but that's just me. Wow. Meantime, as DeSantis gears up for his anticipated Twitter appearance today, it's also been revealed that his flagship law enforcement relocation program has been raising red flags of its own. Numerous police officers lured to new jobs in Florida with cash from Governor Ron DeSantis' flagship law enforcement relocation program have histories of excessive violence or have been arrested for crimes including kidnapping and murder since signing up. A study of state documents has found DeSantis has spent more than $13.5 million to date on that recruitment bonus program, which he touted in 2021 as an incentive to officers in other states frustrated by COVID-19 vaccination mandates. Quoting, "This will go a long way to ensuring we can have the best and the brightest filling our law enforcement ranks," Florida's Republican Attorney General Ashley Moody said in April last year as DeSantis announced one-time $5,000 bonuses for new recruits. However, among the most 600 officers who moved to Florida and received that bonus or were recruited in state, they are a sizable number who either arrived with a range of complaints against them or have since accrued criminal charges. That from the online media outlet Daily Dot. Here are just a few examples of the kind of officers this program has apparently lured to the Sunshine State. They include a former trainee deputy with the Escambia County Sheriff's Office charged with murdering her husband. Best and the brightest. An officer with the Miramar Police Department fired for domestic battery and kidnapping. And a former member of the New York Police Department who was hired by the Palm Beach Police Department, having once been accused of an improper sexual proposition. The best and the brightest. He said he was going to get them in Florida. There's more. That officer, named by the Daily Dot as Daniel Medlin, was also part of a $160,000 settlement by the NYPD for violence at a 2020 protest against the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, in which officers were accused of beating black males without provocation. A lot of programs are out there, doctor, luring great workers, offering bonuses, other incentives, just to get them to the desired department. Unpack what Ron DeSantis has done here, and let's talk about who's among the ranks in Florida law enforcement.
Well, I think there are three important. I mean, obviously there's so much going on in what you just read and the news that it surrounds. I think there are three important points that we might want to think about. And of course, the irony surrounding all of this is that this is all happening on pretty much the same week that the NAACP and other organizations are actually issuing travel advisories, telling people, and particularly people of color, to think twice about even visiting Florida because of the hostile environment that's happening. And I think the three context points. Number one is, of course, DeSantis pending presidential campaign, which is part of that news story. And DeSantis is basically telling people that he's going to make America what he's doing in Florida. And that's probably attractive for people like Elon Musk, who have a very libertarian view of basically a lot of smokescreen about authoritarian, anti-woke, anti-blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, just basically making, for them, a very pro-business community that is not paying for anything that government or society should do. So cutting away all the taxes, all the social programs, all these factors. And so number one is just a question for America. Do we want that model for America? Number two, of course, is that when you do that, which is you cut away things and stop paying for things, you do what you see in Florida, which is a militarization of the police. I think that's a pretty good example of it right there. But we're also seeing that in classrooms. For example, in Florida, you might remember that DeSantis is hiring military veterans and their spouses with really no teacher training whatsoever to teach middle school and high school in Florida. And so they're militarizing classrooms. So that's point number two is that what we want? And then I guess point number three would just be about the relationship between Twitter, which we can talk about. What does Musk get out of attracting the Tucker Carlsons of the world and now the Ron DeSantises of the world? Is that the business model for Twitter? Are they stealing a megaphone and a platform from liberals? What do liberals do from there? So the kind of social media implications of what this means for social media.
Yeah, you've said a lot. I agree with all of it. When you talk about the NAACP, Doctor, and a lot of people thought, well, this is just semantics. They're just making a statement here. It's more political than it is about race, but it's not true. Because some would argue that if there was a national registry too, okay, going back to the recruitment of these officers, this could avoid things. I would suggest that it wouldn't. It would just help Ron DeSantis recruit directly, yes? Because he wants this kind of officer with what you and I may agree is a troubled past, but he would say, right on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's right. I think that when you're creating the kind of society that he seems to be creating in Florida, you want people who have these particular kind of tendencies. And so it's just, again, we're 2 or 3 years after a national debate about excessive policing and what that means for civil society, for American democracy, for equal opportunities for America. And DeSantis is modeling a very different notion of America, which has people with these kind of tendencies in authority positions. I think we all know from history how that turns out, which is it's a move toward cementing a kind of centralized authority that doesn't really turn out well for countries. And so I think we need to keep being aware of these kind of stories. Again, I think it's as alarming as what they're doing in schools in Florida also. And then think, is that the country that we want as he launches a national campaign?
Your credentials are just spot on. We're gonna move on, but I just have to ask you this because it's kind of a prediction. I don't know what we're gonna see when these gentlemen get together on Twitter or here. I guess it's audio. But Elon Musk is awkward, okay? We can argue about why. And so is Ron DeSantis, socially inept and awkward as well. And we all know about the pudding and that whole thing. And so when these two people get together, Doctor, based on your expertise, what social cues might we hear between them?
I'm curious to see the conversation. I mean, I'm certainly going to tune in. That's probably what Elon Musk is betting on. I think you've hit the nail on the head, which is what is being conveyed. It's not charm. It's not allure. It's not even, dare I say, what Trump, for all of his craziness and problematic stuff, is charismatic in a way. But here are two guys who are projecting, power, the desire for power, a particular kind of white masculinity that is about authoritarianism as opposed to swaying people or charming people. So again, I think the interesting thing will be how America responds, given our leaders have generally, not always, been charismatic, and so is people's desire for power going to be greater than their desire to have somebody who speaks to them personally?
Well, I may tune in too. So perhaps you're right, Doctor. We must give Elon a little bit of credit, just a little bit. And then we'll take it from there. I'd love to get a follow-up from you about what you were able to glean from that, using your expertise, of course.